And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who doesn't treat themselves well enough. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, is it ever good to be back on Milleronia. It's a gorgeous day again, and yes, I know, I create and run the weather, but I always make it gorgeous. And it's still worth saying, wow, is it ever beautiful? And it is. Gee, it's good to be back here. And I'm here, of course, with the Colonel and Colonel Jeff and my two doggies who always come to the studio with us. Everyone's just fun, folks. You know what? It is just beautiful here, though. That music makes me feel better every time than when I sit down in the studio. And, of course, that's the Roland Hand Orchestra and the Cinnamon Carter Dancers, featuring boy tenor Brad Simpson asking the musical question, if I take up clog dancing, will it help me clear the stopped-up sink in the kitchen? And I was purposely waiting on that one a little bit because when Colonel Jeff just read me that one, I didn't quite get it. It took me, I looked at him for another 4 or 5 seconds, and he said, it took me that long, too. But, well, our boy tenor today, Brad Simpson, wrote a clever line there and a clever joke. He says, if you notice, if I take up clog dancing, focus on the word clog. Ah, will it help me clear the stopped-up sink in the kitchen? Oh, you mean clear that clog. How do you like that? Well, Brad, we're all with you. And we all get it, especially me and Colonel Jeff. I'll be honest, the two dogs are still sleeping on the floor. I'm not sure they got it, but it wasn't written for them anyway. It's written for me and Colonel Jeff and everyone out there listening. So thank you, Brad. And by the way, if you take up clog dancing, will it help you clear the stopped-up sink in the kitchen? No. That's the best way to put it. And then I thought to myself, hey, wait a minute, maybe it will. Maybe, just maybe, Brad has hit on something there, and maybe it's something to do with clog dancing and fixing clogs, and so naturally, who's the person to call for that? Dr. Chris, because as you know, he is studying for his doctorate in clog dancing at the University of Solvang. And I said to Colonel Jeff, why don't we just call Chris? It's a bit of a long way because we're here on Milleronia. Never mind where that is because I can't and won't tell you. But as you know, it takes 3 helicopter rides for Colonel Jeff to get out here. And we called Dr. Chris, and I think I might have, to be honest, I might have interrupted him. You know, it's with the time difference, I think he had a guest. And I don't mean a guest on his show. I mean a guest, wink, wink. But he said, hi, Larry, how's the Colonel? I said, fine. And I asked him, I said, if Brad takes up clog dancing, will it help him clear the stopped-up sink in his kitchen? And he said, no, and stop calling me. Click. That was a fast click on that call, too. That was a whoa, holy mackerel. Yikes, I think he was busy. I think he did have someone wink there. And by the way, that'll help you clear the stopped-up sink in the kitchen. Of course, that's just a slang phrase at that point. But thank you, Dr. Chris. And to be honest, that means you may not get another call for our next big fancy fried chicken dinner and 2 drinks beforehand in a different place. We want you to. Both the Colonel and I want you to be there. But you know what? Maybe if he tells us who was there and makes a story out of that, Not that we're so interested, but if he does, if we call him up just to see if before inviting him, if he says, oh, wait, don't hang up. I know I hung up too fast, but I really want to come again this year. And if he agrees to tell us that story, maybe we might invite him again. In any case, good question, Brad. And by the way, it's worth saying at this point, the reason I said the Roland Hand Orchestra and the Cinnamon Carter Dancers, because Roland Hand was the character's name played by Martin Landau for Mission Impossible on TV. And Cinnamon Carter was Barbara Bain's character's name on Mission Impossible on TV as well. And I didn't know, of course, the wonderful Martin Landau passed away this past weekend. And what a great actor. And I had worked with him a couple of times too, and done some benefits with him where we were both sitting on the dais together. And I just loved that guy. And he and Barbara Bain were married. I always thought just as a kid, maybe they got married when they met in Mission Impossible. But no, turns out that's not true. They were married in 1957. And he was a student and a teacher at the Actors Studio in New York. That's the Lee Strasberg School. And Barbara Bain was there, a student too. And well, they fell for each other. You know what? We're going to leave that, but that was Maggie, because she barks at everything. She doesn't quite remember that, especially if we're on Milleronia, there aren't things to bark at. And dogs are entre nous. Dogs are tossed in one of the volcanoes just for a bark like that. Now, I wouldn't do that to one of our dogs. Well, I certainly wouldn't do it to Ozzy. Just between us, I would do it to the other one. But she just wanted to bark there, and that's fine with me. And she's still going. I have a feeling she thinks, why isn't the pool man here? Or is that the pool man? And I don't want to explain again to her, we don't have a pool. So we don't have a pool man. In any case, though, folks, just to talk about the great Martin Landau, wow. And he and Barbara Bain had a great love in Hollywood. 36 years they were married. They ultimately divorced, but I was telling the Colonel before, 36 years is pretty good in show business. I mean, that's like a lot. You know what I mean, folks? I mean, of course you do. That people are always getting divorced after 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, and that they consider a lot too. But good for you, Martin. You know what? And it got me thinking about that show, Mission Impossible, with, starring Martin Landau and Peter Lupus, who played the big tough guy. He was so strong. And Greg Morris, Stephen Hill, by the way, who was Mr. Briggs. He was the first guy, good morning, Mr. Briggs, where that recorded guy just says, and until Peter Graves took over as Mr. Phelps. And the guy would then say, good morning, Mr. Phelps. And in any case, though, folks, Stephen Hill, you know, in many different things, in movies and on other TV shows. He was, for instance, on Law and Order, which was filmed in New York. He played the district attorney for many years. Great actor. And, Peter Graves was a great actor, too. And, well, you know what? Martin Landau won an Oscar for playing Bela Lugosi in Johnny Depp's film Ed Wood, which I thought was a terrific movie. I only saw it once when it came out. I'd like to see that thing again. But, talk about an actor. Landau had other movie roles like Rufo in Cleopatra. And he said in an interview recently, he said without trying to, he walked in on Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton when they were well, studying their lines, I guess you could say, and found a new method for that, or a very old one. But they were both married at the time, and their Sybil Burton, who was Richard's wife, and Eddie Fisher, the great singer, who was married to Elizabeth Taylor at the time, both came to the set several times because things have a way of getting out, I guess, and they wanted to see, their spouses, and they wanted to, just say, well, can't you just have an extra meal without making out in the trailer? And the answer apparently was no, we can't. But in any case, God bless you, Martin. You were a great fella to know. What a great smile you had, and I'm sure still do. What a great career with so many movies and television shows, and what a great love with the wonderful Barbara Bain. So, well, I wanted to say that. That's a very fond tip of the hat to you. And by Amazon and PayPal. That's right, Amazon and PayPal. It's wonderful to say thank you to them again. Boy, oh boy, I love that they're sponsors. Amazon does 3 things, remember, folks, that no one else does. Amazon, those 3 things are, first of all, they have everything. You can order anything. Order anything you want. And you know what? The number 2 is that they already have it. They don't have to order it themselves. They don't have to get it from someone. They don't have to look and see. They've got that kind of warehouse, that Indiana Jones type warehouse where it's a mile wide and a mile long and a mile high and a mile deep. Boy, how they built that. His lunch hour must have been. Well, we can't go down for lunch hour. It takes an hour to get down just for lunch hour. But you know what, folks? Amazon does a great job. And the number 3 things they do, out of the 3 things, the number 3, which is my favorite, they send us money for a percentage of whatever it is you get. Whatever you order, we get a percentage of it. And they send it to us in cash, and we put it right in a great steel box. And we just, that's what we save for our next big fancy fried chicken dinner and 2 drinks beforehand in a different place that we used to invite Dr. Chris to all the time. But we'll see. He's not off yet. He's not off the list. We still have a couple others on the list. And one has passed away, but we still might ask him, people really want to come to these big fancy fried chicken dinners. And I'm telling you, and Colonel Jeff knows this too, that they just might come back from a different life just to come with us. In any case, though, pal, you know what? We'll see what Dr. Chris does. That's what Amazon does, a terrific group. Get whatever you want from them, and they'll send us a percentage whatever you order. And, again, by PayPal, what you do is, remember, both Amazon and PayPal have banners on our website. So you don't have to go get them on your computer or on your iPhone or whatever it is you have. You don't have to get them at all. Come to us at LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. That's a pretty good one. I like that. That sounds like, when you went to the bathroom in the middle of the night, if you have kids, that sounds like something you step on. And, boy, you wouldn't be happy then, would you? And then, you'll fall over and hit your head on the dresser from that. In any case, you know what, though? We'll get you there. Come to our website and click on Amazon or click on PayPal and then go take a nap. We'll get you there. And PayPal, boy, what a terrific group. You feel like you're saving the world when you work with them, and who knows, maybe you are. And we like them very much. And by the way, instead, I don't like to say donate or pay what you like or join the Platinum Club or something like that. I always just like to say, buy us some drinks. That's right. You know what? because there are different levels of level 1 through 5, all the way up to...
We're driving to Florida!
I still love that guy. Yes! And I didn't always, because you never know how things are going to change in life. But boy, oh boy, Amazon and PayPal, two terrific groups. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. I really do love doing this. There's nothing more wonderful than passing a good joke along. That's one of the reasons I love being a comedian, as well as an actor and a writer. And these jokes are great, though, because if you like them, you can tell them to friends and to family, too. And the Colonel and I like this one from this week. Guy's driving along the freeway, and he's pulled over by a cop. And the cop walks up to the window and taps on it, and he rolls down the window from inside, and the cop says to him, well, I'll be honest, buddy, you looked like you were weaving around back and forth there from behind you where I was, so do me a favor, just get out of the car, and I want to give you a breathalyzer test just to make sure you're okay. And the man in the car, the driver, says, Officer, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And the cop says, why? What's wrong? And then the guy says, well, I have a very severe asthma, and if I breathe like that nice and hard a couple of times, I could knock myself into a tizzy and you just have to go to the hospital. I'd have to go right away. And then the officer says, well, all right, I understand. Do me a favor then, just, get out of the car and we'll do a blood test, okay? And we'll do it that way. We can get it. I'll be honest. I think we're going to have to go down to the station, the police station, and do it there. But we'll test your blood, and that'll be a good way to do it. And the man says, "I'm sorry again. I can't do that. That's something else I can't do." And the cop says, "Why not?" And he says, "Well, I have a blood disease, to be honest with you, and if it doesn't quite, clog up, so to speak, right away, so." If you prick my finger down there at the police station, it might bleed and bleed for hours, and then same thing. I'll have to go right to the hospital. And then the cop says, "All right, I got you." And you know what? Just let's keep it. Just get out of the car, and you know what? Just get out of the car, and you'll walk a straight line here, and we'll do it that way. And the man says, "I'm sorry, I can't do that either." "Why not?" "'Cause I'm drunk." I like that one. I hope you did too. Oh, didn't we go all around the block for that one? Well, that's a good one. And the Colonel and I both like it. And if you do too, pass it on. That's a good way to live, by, passing a laugh on to someone you care about. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. Boy, I like that music. I like that string quartet. This is a poem by the great Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who was, of course, a great American poet and writer. He lived from 1807 to 1882. What a great writer and thinker. What a great wordsmith he was. By the shores of Gitche Gumee, by the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. That's been in my head since fourth grade. Those are the first two lines of Hiawatha, which was written by Longfellow. And boy, he could write. That was a long poem, especially for a kid. I mean, that was, if I remember correctly, that was like a 30-page poem. You don't want to miss a stanza on that and have to go back. But you know what? God bless him, he was great. And this is one he wrote called Ultima Thule, the Iron Pen. And Ultima Thule, as part of that name, was something else the Colonel and I looked at each other and said, what in the world is that? It's a phrase from the Middle Ages. And Ultima Thule meant, for one thing, a distant land so far that it's beyond the borders of the known world at that time or any time. And that's what Ultima Thule was. And it's part of, well, this terrific poem, The Iron Pen by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I thought this pen would arise from the casket where it lies, of itself would arise and write my thanks and my surprise. When you gave it to me under the pines, I dreamed these gems from the mines of Siberia, Ceylon, and Maine would glimmer as thoughts in the lines. That this iron link from the chain of Bonnivard might retain some verse of the poet who sang of the prisoner and his pain. That this wood from the frigate's mast might write me a rhyme at last, as it used to write on the sky, the song of the sea and the blast. But motionless as I wait, like a bishop lying in state, lies the pen with its mitre of gold and its jewels inviolate. Then must I speak and say that the light of that summer day in the garden under the pines shall not fade and pass away. I shall see you standing there, caressed by the fragrant air, with the shadow on your face and the sunshine on your hair. I shall hear the sweet low tone of a voice before unknown, saying, "This is from me to you, from me and to you alone." And in words not idle and vain I shall answer and thank you again for the gift and the grace of the gift, O beautiful Helen of Maine. And forever this gift will be as a blessing from you to me, as a drop of the dew of your youth on the leaves of an aged tree. Isn't that lovely, folks? I think that's a lovely poem. I think it's beautiful. I hope you did too. Thank you, Mr. Longfellow. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, MMM, Triple M, the magic movie moment. This is a great movie, folks. It's just plain flat out great. From 1959, North by Northwest. And what a group of people involved, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. And what a cast, starring Cary Grant and Eva Marie Saint and James Mason and Martin Landau. I will never forget him in this movie. Whew. He was such a bad guy. He could really act, folks. He acted up a storm. And in this movie, he puts himself together, and the look on that face and the way he acts and the way he speaks and the way he confronts everyone, he is a real bad guy. He is a villain beyond any other villain I've ever seen. You just look at him and think, holy mackerel, that is not a good guy. Good for you, Martin Landau. You played a great villain, and that's the magic movie moment for me. His whole part. That really is a great movie. And that character of his, though, Leonard was the name. And he worked for James Mason, who was a really good head bad guy. But Landau played Leonard. Leonard was a serious bad guy. Leonard was the guy that Mason would say, Leonard, go get him this time, Leonard. Hey, that wasn't a bad James Mason. And but you know what, folks? Martin Landau was so good in that. His whole part in that movie was a magic movie moment for me, and will be forever. Thank you, Martin, for so much good work. And you know what? It's time for us, you and me and all of us, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about to you today, that we have to learn to enjoy ourselves a little more. And what I mean by that is take a little time off for once, every so often, just even a few hours here and there. And don't always be running someplace and running to another place. I had a trip to New York. I left last week just for 3 days. I was going to work at the Beacon Theater with Jerry Seinfeld. And boy, 2 shows on that Thursday night, sold out both shows. And, you know, it's amazing, though, to take a flight from Los Angeles the day before the shows. And it's good to leave the day before the shows, to me. Especially these days, you never know what's going to happen with airlines or just getting in or out of a city. And boy, I went the day before on a Wednesday, got into the Ritz-Carlton Hotel on Central Park South, on 59th Street there. And folks, it's a terrific place. I've been there many times. And you know what? They make you feel good when you go there. They always say such nice things. Oh, hello, Mr. Miller. It's good to see you again. Thank you for coming back. It makes you feel great. And they gave me a nice room there. This is on Wednesday. I was in the room. Well, you leave early in the morning from Los Angeles. You get to New York. I walked in the room, I guess, about 8:30 or 9 at night. That's a fine time to get there. I was going to call Jerry and going to call home and just check in with everyone. Hey, I made it. I'm here in room so-and-so, and here's the number of the hotel, which I know doesn't mean much anymore if we all have pocket phones, but it's still, I suppose, an old habit of mine. But you know what? I loved being at the hotel there, and hey, I'm in New York, and it was very, very hot. And that next day, Thursday, on which were the 2 shows, Thursday evening at the Beacon. And I spoke to Jerry. Let's see, I gave him a call about, 10 or 10:30. It was so nice. I don't know about you, but hotel rooms are great. I'm used to them, and they're used to me. And I understand them, and they understand me. And I hung everything up, and of course, you can sleep in a nice hotel bed. And they're pretty nice. And I spoke to Jerry, and he said, yeah, I'm coming in. He said he was going to be in. He said, how about lunch? I said, good idea. We're going to have lunch at 12:30. And because of the 2 shows at the Beacon, that I knew I wanted to be in the shower no later than 5. And he got a little stuck in traffic, so we got together about 1:15 and went to just walked down to a place on 57th Street on the let's see. I guess that's on the west side. See, it's just past Carnegie Hall. What a beautiful area, folks. What a city that is, New York. And we went to the Brooklyn Diner and had a nice lunch. And we sat there for about an hour, which is a long time at a table in a diner. We weren't trying to make it long, and everyone was glad to see us. And, well, but it's just an hour and 10 minutes. How do you like that? And we had a nice lunch and walked outside there, and we were going to walk back to the hotel there. He had a car that had brought him in, and the driver was there. And, he said, sure, we can walk back, whatever you want. And I said, I'll be honest, by now it was about, it was 2:30 or 3. And I said, you know what? I've about had it just on this day. It was hot, but nice. And he said, I feel the same way. And so he just drove me back to the Ritz, and then he drove himself. He had the guy take him to, his apartment in Manhattan there. And folks, I don't mind telling you, it was terrific to get back into a hotel room that's yours and have everyone at the hotel smile and nod when you walk back in. It makes you feel like a king. And I did. And at that moment, you can take slip your topsiders off and take your jeans off and just lay down on that freshly made bed. That doesn't feel bad. When you lay yourself down on a clean bed, on a good bed, in a good hotel, in a great city, boy, folks, you know you've done something then. And I just closed my eyes for about an hour and got up, and it was a little before the exact right time to get in the shower. We did 2 great shows. I hope some of you were there or think about it next time. I could have told you that, by the way. I could have said, oh, by the way, I'm going to be at the Beacon Theater with Seinfeld, and come on by and see a good show. They were 2 terrific shows. And it's nice, such a nice place to sit. It's one of those places, the Beacon Theater. Well, you know how old it is? It's old enough that there's an elevator in it, but it's still run by a guy. You don't see that much, or you don't see it at all. But this guy has been there a long time. His name is Jose, and he's been there. When he first started there, his name was Joe. That's how long he was been there. But you know what? He's awfully nice, and there are 7, 8 floors to this place. And he would take me and Kevin, the producer, up, down, and Jerry to go to here and there. That green room, that dressing room, it's an awfully nice place to sit. You can just glance out those windows. They look like New York windows, meaning they've been there a long time too. And the air conditioning was going. Air conditioners, which is what I think of in New York City a lot. They're not central air conditioners. They don't have piping or tubes that go through walls and floors and just cool the place off from a giant unit somewhere in the basement. These places have air conditioners where you see from the outside, hey, look, an air conditioner, which, again, you don't see very much. We have one here on the mainland in our house there. We have an air conditioner downstairs in our studio there. And you just don't see that very much. He closes that gate and he takes you up and he knows just how to run it. And you always say the same thing with a big smile. I say, thank you very much. We did 2 great shows. We went out to dinner afterwards to get some pizza. I wish I'll tell you the name of this. I got to ask Jerry again because there's a place he likes. And we went there. It was pretty darn good, folks. And it was on a Thursday night at about 12:30. We got to this place downtown. I think it was around 40th Street and 9th Avenue. But I'll get you the name of it. It's worth going to just to look at a place. It's not fancy. It's not big. And they just have a big Italian heart in that place. And they smile, and they're so glad to see you. They hold their arms out. It was terrific. I got back to my hotel room, and after some nice handshakes and nice hugs, they drove me back, and I was, washed up, and I showered up also again just to get the 2 shows and the pizza dust off me. And I got into my pajamas, and the bed was turned down by the terrific housekeeping folks there. And that's another moment, folks, of, you get in that bed and you don't even have to put your feet in again. You just lay yourself down on it. And you think, it just feels great. It feels the way it ought to feel. And I got up, and by the way, there was some traffic problems. And on our way to the theater Thursday night, a transformer on the Upper East Side just blew out. I'm sorry, the Upper West Side, where the Beacon is. And there was traffic, all over the place. And it was stopped dead traffic. This wasn't like, it's a little snow now. This was real serious traffic up and down on Broadway. And the driver, their driver, I was telling Colonel Jeff, this is a classic New York driver. This guy was good. He was so good. When they gave him the let's go signal, and it just said, and when Kevin said, you know what, let's get going a different way here. Let's get around this whole thing. He went, and it wasn't slow. He went up on a curb that separates Broadway there, and there was an old couple sitting on the bench right where the curb goes up, and he just went up that curb. And it's a funny thing about New York. The two old people didn't mind. He didn't mind. The driver didn't care. Everybody else was fine on the street there. It shook me up a little bit because he just went up and down on that curb and swung and did a forced U-turn back down Broadway. But this guy was good. This guy was like not the 24 hours of Le Mans. This was the 24 hours of Brooklyn. And this guy could drive that like nobody's business. He went down, he saw one street that was heading west, but it was a little jammed for his taste. And so he just wheeled around that and went down another 2 blocks and headed west there and just more or less floored it. Well, not more or less, he floored it. And he took us to one of the big western right down near the overheads and near the Hudson River. And we went up then and up and across and back down and around. And he got us there, folks. It was 5 or 6 minutes after he left Broadway. And it was another where you look at, they knew the guy, they knew the driver. But this is another case where I looked back at him and said, that was pretty good. And he said, he just laughed and went, because he knew he was good. And we went in the Beacon there, and we all got on the elevator run by the guy, run by Jose. And you know what, folks, the next day when I got up to go back to the airport, to go back to Kennedy Airport, it was there was plenty of traffic, and it was a little rainy, but this was no kidding around traffic anymore. And there was still, reverberations from the blown transformer the night before. And it was one of those moments where I suddenly decided not to care. And that's what I'm getting at here. Never mind worrying about it. Could I call the car service that was driven by the same guy? But could I call and say, would you make it a little earlier, please, instead of 9:45? Pick me up at 9. I'll be up. Just got to pack my stuff, and that won't take long. But then I said, the heck with it. Why bother this guy? Why bother myself? And I did the same thing. I took a shower, packed, went down there. He was right out front 5 minutes early, and I was right out front with him 5 minutes early, the same 5 minutes. And, folks, we made it. And this guy, I'm telling you, could drive like nobody's business. And he got me to Kennedy. We didn't even stay on the freeways. We didn't even stay on the highways. We did something my dad, God bless him, used to do. My dad knew every street in New York. And I mean, as soon as if we were on the Van Wyck Expressway heading into Manhattan, if he saw one brake light, he would be off that road in a second. And of course, we'd go down Woodhaven Boulevard in Queens. And he knew every street off of Woodhaven. He knew every way to go. And he got us to a tunnel or a bridge. He got us anywhere we wanted to get to. And he was my dad was smart and good and knew every street in New York. And this driver now got us on Woodhaven Boulevard again, going the other way, back down towards Kennedy. And it gave me a good memory. And I told him that. He said, you know this area? And I said, I do. I know it because my father knew it so well. And I told him his name was Brian, and he was all right. I liked him very much. He got me to the airline at Kennedy, and I got in there. And folks, when you start calming down, when you start feeling better, when you don't get tense, when you don't look around going, well, where's the line for the right ticket for I need to and drop a bag. You know what? You'll find it. Just take it easy. And that was another step where on this trip I took it easy. And then, sure enough, I got on the plane just fine. And I sat down there, and this was near the back. This was not a first-class flight. This was coach. And as my friend Hamilton's wife, Marcia, used to say, there's nothing more depressing than walking onto a plane and turning right. They were really nice on that plane, though. And I got back home, back to Los Angeles, and I was in the house. I had parked at the airport in LAX, and I was in the house by 8:30 or 9. And I'm saying this because I had an acting job a couple of days ago on the mainland, of course. And this was at the Skirball Cultural Center, a show called The Runaways, which has been seen on Hulu. They've been out for a season, and they called. It was very nice. They wanted me to play a part, and you know what? You never know. I may be on again. And this is for the same folks who have run the Rugrats company. And this is a real show with real actors and me, and boy, you know what? And the point is, I got up so early that day, up at 5 and shaved, showered, and got ready and went up to the Skirball Center. Got to get a better name for that. I've been there 100 times, and I still can't say it. But you know what? And after that, we did all my stuff, the whole scene I was in, and we were done by 12:30, 1:45. And lunch on the set was at 2, and I said, you know what? I'm tired, and I don't think I'll wait around for lunch, and I just took my stuff off, and they washed me up, took all the makeup off in the makeup trailer, and boy, does that feel good. Your face and head, and whew, got dressed again, and I got my car, said goodbye to everybody with the same tip of the hat, and got in the car and drove back home. And these are all things that make you feel good. I got home and took my stuff off and jumped in the shower to get the rest of the makeup and all the set dust off you. And oh boy, folks, to get clean like that and put on clean clothes, and whew, I laid myself down on the bed and had a quick nap, about 15, 20 minutes, and I got up and said, I am hungry now for lunch. It was now about 2 o'clock or so, and I went down to the mall, the Sherman Oaks Galleria, and I decided to pick myself one of those places, and I decided, you know how crazy I went? You know how mad it was? This is real madness. I went to the Valet Parker, which is not so crazy maybe, but you know what? That's such a big parking lot and such a big part of the buildings there. And I drove up to the valet guy, and he opened that door. Now this costs, another $12 or so, including the tip you're going to give them. But I said, great, thank you. And I took the sports section from that day's paper and slid it under my arm, and I went up to P.F. Chang's, which is, they have a number of those restaurants. They have, it's a chain, P.F. Chang's, that's, as you can guess, it's Chinese restaurant stuff and, Asian stuff. So they have rolls, it feels like Japanese, Chinese. And I ordered something good, and the place was empty at that point. There was one table in it. They must have had 50 or 60 empty tables there, which is great for me. They know they'll be full later. But now it's 3 o'clock, and I walk in, and they smile, and they sit you down by the window where you can watch, all the pretty girls walk by. And I put that newspaper down next to my phone and I just sat there, just staring out the window in such a relaxed way, and the waiter came up. And he said, do you need more time before you order? And I said, I think I can order right now. And I got an Arnold Palmer for a drink, which is iced tea and lemonade. And I ordered from him a tofu dish that was I think it was called Buddha's Feast. And a California roll, which is a kind of a sushi thing. And folks, I chomped my way through that and just sat there, sort of head looking down a little bit, just blinking. It was a great feeling. I knew I was going to walk out of there and just walk down the rest of the way in the little alleys there at this mall. And I thought, maybe I'll get a gift for one of the kids, and maybe I'll get something for my wife. But I walked out of that P.F. Chang's and I looked down there and I said, I think I'm going right back to the car, because I was feeling wonderful. But that's another part of this. Take care of yourself. And you know what? You get another gift for them another time. And I started walking back toward the parking lot, and I was shuffling. That's how slow that walk was. And I felt great from it. I shuffled back down to the escalator and got on. And that escalator, here's another good way you can tell how tired are you, how calm are you, how relaxed are you. That escalator felt like it was going 100 miles an hour. That's how calm. And I got to the bottom and just stepped/tumbled off the escalator. I didn't fall, but boy, that's how fast it was. And I walked over, gave the tickets there. The guy pulled the car up, and I gave him a couple of bucks tip. And I was wide, said, all right, let's be careful. Let's drive home safely now. And I got home, and folks, the same thing. I washed up again and took my jeans and topsiders off again. It was all clean clothes from the shower before. And I got down on that bed again, and good night, nurse. I'm telling you, by that point, it was about 4:15, 4:30, and it felt great. And that's the theme. I hope you know it. Make yourself feel great every so often. Well, I'd been doing good jobs, and I was very happy. And I was on planes zipping across the country a couple of times, and I was very happy. And I did good work on that acting show, maybe terrific. And I was very happy. And I just had a nice meal at P.F. Chang's, and I laid myself down on that bed at home, and I was very happy again. I know that, and I hope you know it too. And that's because, well, we know the same things. Homer is Homer. Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. Take a good shower and go to sleep. And be well. We'll see you here next time.